Breaking news. Federal Judge Tanya Chutkan has taken an unprecedented step tonight involving Donald Trump. Less than 6 hours ago, she issued a formal criminal referral to the House of Representatives, and it marks the first time a sitting federal judge has ever directly triggered impeachment proceedings against a former president facing active prosecution. Judge Chutkan confirms multiple violations of court orders, witness intimidation, and obstruction of justice. Tonight, January 10th, 2026, now marks a moment that constitutional scholars say could fundamentally alter the balance between judicial authority and executive immunity. A federal judge formally referred criminal conduct to Congress for immediate action. Take a look. The 47-page referral document filed at 3:17 p.m. Eastern Time doesn't mince words. Quote, "The defendant's repeated violations constitute a clear and present danger to the administration of justice and demand immediate congressional intervention." Remember when I told you that Trump's courtroom behavior would eventually force the judiciary's hand? Remember when I said judges wouldn't tolerate obstruction forever? I wasn't exaggerating. I wasn't being dramatic, because less than 7 months after his conviction in the classified documents case, the entire system is moving against him. Let that sink in. A federal judge has just handed Congress a roadmap for impeachment while Trump is simultaneously appealing felony convictions. This is not rumor. This is not speculation from anonymous sources. This is happening right now, documented in federal court filings that anyone can read. The National Guard has been mobilized in Washington, D.C. Protests are erupting outside the Capitol building. Republican representatives from swing districts are defecting in real time, and Trump himself is on Truth Social, posting frantic all-caps rants about military tribunals, deep state coups, and mobilizing his supporters to defend the republic. I wish I were making this up. I genuinely do. But this is where we are. January 10th, 2026. The day a federal judge declared that a former president's conduct had become so dangerous that Congress must act immediately. Before we go any further, let's be honest for a moment. You cannot rely on cable news networks to give you the full picture of what's happening right now. They're worried about access, about balance, about not appearing biased. That's why we built this channel, to deliver unfiltered analysis backed by primary sources and court documents. If you want to stay ahead of this story as it unfolds, join our free newsletter, The Breakdown. We'll send detailed legal analysis, document links, and expert commentary straight to your inbox every morning before the cable shows even start. The link is in the description below. And if you want to support independent coverage that actually tracks power and accountability, consider joining our membership community. You'll get early access to videos, exclusive deep dives, and be part of a community that refuses to look away when democracy is under stress. Now, let's get back to what just happened. At 3:17 p.m. Eastern Time, after Trump violated his gag order for the 14th time in 3 months, Judge Chutkan didn't simply hold him in contempt again. She escalated dramatically. She issued a formal criminal referral to the House Judiciary Committee, and the language in that referral is explosive. Judge Chutkan wrote that Trump's conduct represents a systematic pattern of obstruction, witness intimidation, and contempt for judicial authority that threatens the foundational principle that no person is above the law. That phrase matters. Systematic pattern is legal language with teeth. It means this isn't about one bad day or one angry tweet. It means documented, repeated, intentional criminal behavior. And she didn't send a summary. She sent everything. She transmitted 14 documented gag order violations with timestamps and screenshots, transcripts of 7 contempt hearings where Trump was warned explicitly, evidence of direct messages to witnesses in his criminal cases, phone records showing coordination with co-defendants under court-ordered no-contact social media posts, threatening prosecutors, judges, and jury pool members, internal emails from Trump's legal team acknowledging violations, expert declarations from former judges about the unprecedented nature of this conduct, and then she included the most damaging material of all, recorded conversations where Trump discussed defying court orders with advisors, proving intent. This is unprecedented. A federal judge has never, ever done this before. Not during Watergate, not during the Clinton impeachment, not during Nixon's Saturday Night Massacre. Never. And the House Judiciary Committee was ready because articles of impeachment have been sitting dormant since November 2025. Those articles contain 8 specific charges: obstruction of justice, witness tampering, contempt of court, violation of court orders, abuse of power, conduct unbecoming, threat to constitutional order, and incitement. Until Judge Chutkan's referral hit Congress at 3:17 p.m., those articles had roughly 87 co-sponsors, all Democrats. But everything changed when a federal judge appointed by a Democratic president but respected across the spectrum for judicial restraint said this conduct demands immediate action. As of this morning, those articles now have 231 co-sponsors. 231, a majority of the House of Representatives. Enough to impeach right now, and the names being added are shocking. Representative Mike Lawler from New York, Representative Don Bacon from Nebraska. Moderate Republicans who defended Trump through 2 previous impeachments have flipped. Congressman Lawler held a press conference this morning and said, quote, "I took an oath to the Constitution, not to any individual. When a federal judge says a former president is obstructing justice, I have to listen." That is a Republican from a Biden 1 district saying that about a Republican former president. Democratic leadership has now invoked Rule 99, Section 2, a fast-track mechanism that forces a floor vote within 72 hours. They filed the motion this morning at 9:45 a.m. That means by Monday, January 13th, at the latest, the full House will vote on whether to impeach Donald Trump for the 3rd time. 72 hours. That is all the time Trump has left. With 231 co-sponsors already on record, the math is brutal. Trump is getting impeached. The only remaining question is whether the final margin will be narrow, something like 218 to 217, or whether this turns into a landslide if more Republicans break ranks over the weekend. And that number is growing by the hour. Moderate Republicans, who were waiting to see which way the wind blows, are jumping ship. They see a federal judge's referral. They see documented criminal conduct. They see their constituents exhausted by chaos. And they know they cannot go on television and defend obstruction of justice anymore, not when a respected judge has put her name on a 47-page document. Trump's response has been exactly what you would expect. He has been posting nonstop on Truth Social since 4 p.m. yesterday. All caps rants about rigged courts, attacks on Obama judges, claims of political persecution. And then came the post that has alarmed everyone. If Congress moves forward with this witch hunt, patriots must converge on Washington. The Second Amendment exists for moments like this. A former president calling for armed resistance to Congress is not rhetoric. It is seditious conspiracy. And every post he makes becomes evidence. Every threat strengthens the case against him. He cannot stop himself. He is self-destructing in real time. Washington, D.C. is locked down. National Guard units are deployed across the Capitol complex. Steel barricades are going up around federal buildings. Pro-Trump demonstrators are gathering near the National Mall. Counter-protesters demanding accountability are forming near the Supreme Court. Law enforcement is everywhere, preparing for Monday's vote. This is day 1. There are 3 days until the impeachment vote. 3 more days of chaos. 3 more days for Trump to incriminate himself further. 3 more days for more Republicans to break ranks. Everything we've been tracking for months. The contempt citations, the gag order violations, the witness intimidation allegations, the appeals court rulings, the Republican defections has converged into this moment. Impeachment is coming, and there is nothing Trump can do to stop it. So what happens next is not speculation, it's procedure, and it's moving fast. The House vote will happen by Monday, January 13th, 72 hours from now, because Rule 99 has already been invoked. That fast-track rule exists for moments exactly like this, when leadership believes delay itself becomes dangerous. With 231 co-sponsors already on record, impeachment is not a question of if, it's a question of margin. Will it be narrow, something like 218, 217, or will it turn into a blowout if 10 or 15 Republicans join over the weekend? Either way, Trump is about to become the first president in American history to be impeached 3 times. And this time, the charges are not about Ukraine phone calls or January 6th rhetoric alone. They are about active, ongoing criminal obstruction, 14 documented violations, witness tampering, contempt of court, defiance of judicial authority, threats against prosecutors, coordination with co-defendants under no-contact orders, and incitement to violence. These are not arguments over policy disputes or political norms. These are allegations that strike directly at the rule of law and the independence of the judiciary. That distinction matters because it changes how both Republican senators and the American public will view what comes next. Once the House impeaches, the process moves to the Senate. A trial becomes mandatory. Chief Justice John Roberts will preside. House impeachment managers will present evidence drawn directly from Judge Chutkan's 47-page referral. Trump's legal team, whoever is willing to represent him after his last 3 attorneys withdrew in November, will attempt a defense, and then 100 senators will vote. Conviction requires 67 votes. Every Democrat plus 18 Republicans. That sounds like a high bar. But look at what's already happening. Senate Republicans who are solidly in Trump's camp are starting to hedge. Senators from swing states like Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, and Arizona are watching the footage and imagining attack ads. Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell is furious about Trump's Truth Social post, threatening armed resistance, a post that directly endangered McConnell's members. Even if Trump survives Senate conviction, numerically, politically, he will be crippled. An impeached former president facing overwhelming evidence from a federal judge is a president without leverage, without credibility, and without a path back to power. And then there's Trump himself. This is the most volatile variable in the entire equation. His reaction so far has been erratic, threatening, and increasingly detached from reality. Posts about the Second Amendment and patriots converging on Washington are not campaign bluster. They are red flags. Law enforcement is treating them seriously. That's why the National Guard is mobilized. That's why FBI field offices are monitoring far-right militia channels. Authorities are preparing for the possibility of another January 6th-style attack, this time triggered not by election denial, but by impeachment. Because history has taught them not to dismiss Trump's rhetoric as empty. January 6th started with, "Be there, we'll be wild." The next 72 hours are the most dangerous window. Trump knows impeachment is inevitable. He knows control is slipping away. And when Trump feels cornered, he escalates. He lashes out. He burns bridges. He invites chaos. That pattern is well documented, which is why officials in Washington are not sleeping tonight. There is also a criminal dimension unfolding in parallel. Judge Chutkan's referral doesn't stop with Congress. Evidence of witness tampering, obstruction of justice, and criminal contempt has also been sent to the Department of Justice. If investigators can establish that Trump directly coordinated with witnesses to change testimony, that is subordination of perjury, a serious federal crime. Witness tampering carries prison exposure. Obstruction of justice does as well. Multiple federal grand juries are already active in Washington, D.C., Miami, and Atlanta. It is entirely possible that criminal indictments arrive while Senate impeachment proceedings are still underway. We are now in territory the Constitution anticipated but hoped would never be needed. Multiple accountability mechanisms moving at once. Congressional impeachment, Senate trial, federal prosecutions, and hovering over all of it is a conversation no one wanted to have, but now cannot avoid: the 25th Amendment. Reports indicate quiet discussions between cabinet officials and Vice President Vance about capacity and fitness. The 25th Amendment allows removal without impeachment if a president is deemed unable to discharge the duties of office. It can happen quickly, overnight. Trump could contest it, but the cabinet would decide. And with impeachment already moving forward, the outcome would not be in doubt. The fact that this option is even being discussed tells you how severe the situation has become. Meanwhile, the Republican Party is fracturing in real time. Loyalists like Representatives Marjorie Taylor Greene and Matt Gaetz are doubling down, calling for protests and defending Trump unconditionally. Pragmatists like Representatives Don Bacon and Mike Lawler are fleeing, citing oaths to the Constitution. Internal threats are being made. Lawmakers who defected are receiving harassment from Trump's base. And worse, the party is tearing itself apart under the weight of Trump's collapse. And with the 2026 midterms just 10 months away, many Republicans see electoral disaster ahead if they remain tied to this chaos. Internationally, allies are alarmed. A former American president threatening armed resistance while facing impeachment is not a normal headline. Adversaries like Russia and China are watching closely, calculating risk, probing weakness. Domestic instability always has global consequences, and right now, America looks unstable. So here is where we stand. 72 hours from a House impeachment vote. A federal judge has formally declared that Trump's conduct constitutes obstruction and witness intimidation. A majority of the House has already signed on to articles. The National Guard is deployed. Federal criminal investigations are accelerating. The 25th Amendment is being discussed. The Republican Party is splintering, and Trump is escalating rhetoric that only worsens his legal exposure. This is not noise. This is not hype. This is convergence. Everything that has been building for months, contempt citations, gag order violations, criminal convictions, appeals court losses, is colliding into one narrow window of time. What happens in the next 72 hours will shape the future of presidential accountability, judicial independence, and the rule of law itself. And beyond the immediate mechanics of impeachment votes and Senate trials, there is a deeper reckoning taking shape, one that cannot be delayed or dismissed once this process begins. What Judge Chutkan did shattered a long-standing assumption in American politics that federal judges would never directly intervene in congressional processes. That wall is gone. Now the judiciary has stepped directly into the impeachment process and said this conduct is so severe that Congress must act immediately. That changes the balance of power in a way we have never seen before. For decades, presidents relied on running out the clock as a survival strategy. Delay investigations, appeal rulings, wait for elections, run out statute of limitations. But that strategy is no longer available to Trump. The referral collapsed timelines. It forced Congress to move on a judicial clock, not a political one. And once that clock starts, it doesn't stop because of polling, fundraising, or campaign rallies. This is why Trump's allies are panicking behind the scenes, even if they're loud in public. They understand that impeachment is no longer the end of the story. It's the beginning of exposure. Senate trials bring subpoenas, sworn testimony, document production. Every layer peeled back creates new legal risk, not just for Trump, but for anyone who enabled him. And that's where the fear really spreads. Staffers who carried messages to witnesses, donors who funded legal defenses structured to delay justice, political operatives who coordinated social media attacks on judges, lawyers who filed frivolous motions knowing they violated ethics rules, advisors who counseled contempt. People who thought loyalty would protect them are suddenly realizing loyalty only ties them closer to the blast radius. Cooperation becomes the rational move. Silence becomes dangerous. And once that shift begins, it accelerates. Trump himself senses this, which is why his rhetoric has turned openly authoritarian. He isn't posting to persuade voters anymore. He's posting to threaten institutions. Calling for armed patriots to converge on Washington isn't political messaging. It's a threat designed to make House members hesitate, to make senators second guess, to make prosecutors fear consequences for doing their jobs. But that tactic has backfired spectacularly. Threats don't freeze institutions when they're documented and public. They harden them. Every post is now archived, time-stamped, and potentially admissible. Every escalation strengthens the argument that Trump is not just defiant, but dangerous. This is also why security posture in Washington looks the way it does right now. Officials are preparing not just for protests, but for the possibility that Trump's words trigger real-world violence. The memory of January 6th isn't theoretical. It's operational. Agencies know exactly what happens when rhetoric turns into action, and they are determined not to be caught unprepared again. At the same time, the political narrative is collapsing around Trump. He can no longer credibly claim witch hunt when a federal judge bound by evidence and procedure initiates impeachment. This wasn't a partisan cable host. This wasn't an opposition research firm. This was Judge Tanya Chutkan, a federal judge with lifetime tenure, bound by judicial ethics, acting on documented criminal conduct. That distinction matters enormously to voters who may be exhausted by chaos, but still care about legitimacy. And here's the quiet truth: many in Washington won't